So, fuel rails in a V10 TDI. I'm making this video to avoid someone else having to go through what I just went through. So when you take the fuel rails off for whatever reason, whether you're working on your intake manifolds, alternator, anything down there, you pretty much have to take these fuel rails out. Now when you pull them out, stuck into these holes here, there's a hole there and a hole there, there's going to be two little pipes. They look like this. You can see some right here. Now this end goes up in here, and then this end goes down in a hole way down in there. That little circle right there. You see mine are, they're dirty there. I'm going to blow them out with air before I put it back on. Now, I was told by people on the internet that the best way to do it would be to put these up in here with new O-rings and carefully put the rail with the fuel tubes down there on those holes down there, and then kind of wiggle it around and make sure it was pressed down before you started tightening on the bolts. So I tried that on this side, and all that ended up happening was it looks like the short side of the tubes were misaligned, and as you can see, I destroyed all 5 of the short tubes, and I believe 2 of the long tubes, and that was on this side. So then on this side, I actually made a special tool and was able to, I took a piece of aluminum here and I turned a tiny little peg on the end, and I was able to take the piece, put it on like that, and actually stick it down in the head and get it lined up and then carefully pushed in and seated to make sure that this lower O-ring had been pushed into its hole. But that didn't help me with the fact that I ruined 7 out of 10 tubes on this side. So these tubes, they don't have a part number of their own. If you look on all parts diagrams, this thing has a part number and the tubes don't. So apparently the tubes come with this part number. Now, you can find this part number and you can find them used on eBay. But essentially, all you can get is where someone has pulled this off and a tube has stayed in. Maybe sometimes you'll see, I don't know, I saw as many as like 5 tubes stuck in the rail, kind of just helter-skelter. So as far as I can tell, that is the only way to buy these tubes, is to go through some eBay ad that has some tubes on an intake rail. Because anyone that's selling an engine, the tubes may be down in there, but they're not going to reach down in there and pull them out and list them on eBay individually. So I was left with no other choice but to machine some tubes. I made a full set of small ones, and I'm only replacing 2 of the long ones because these 3 were salvageable. But we are about to put them on, and we're going to see if they leak. But essentially, I made this video to let you know that when you put the injector rail back down, you put the fuel tube in the hole first, and then you put this thing down over it. Now, do you see here this space? There's like a little gap between the intake manifold flange and the tube. The reason I knew I was messed up over here is because that gap was closed up and the rail was touching right there. That's how I knew that it hadn't gone down straight. So as you put your thing in, make sure there's a gap right there. And you can feel the O-ring seat in these a lot better than you could down there. So just make sure it's lined up. Part of why I broke mine so bad is I thought it was lined up and I tapped it a little bit with a hammer. So do not tap anything with a hammer whatsoever, and tighten it down. Now, another thing, pulling these out, it's kind of not fun. You don't want to mess it up with pliers, but I've pretty much just tried various pliers to get them stuck out of the head. When you pull the rails off, some of them may come out with the rail, some may stay down on the head. So either way, these O-rings, I bought, it's 40 O-rings, 2 on each tube, 10 tubes on each side. So I actually bought them from Volkswagen because I wanted to get the right O-rings. So you can see the old ones here, which were mostly shredded. The O-rings after tax and shipping, because they weren't in stock, $153 for 40 O-rings, which rounds out to about $3 and, actually I got it right here. Yeah, $153 from the dealer. Now you can see the part numbers are N-909-326-03 and N-909-557-03. Now, these came from FCP Euro. You can see right here. Now, that's the part number as well. Clearly, they just ordered them from somewhere. These do seem to be the exact same O-rings, so save yourself the expense. Much cheaper to buy them from a place like FCP Euro. I wanted to make sure they were the right O-rings, though, because I don't want to take this back apart, immediately when it leaks. And the only reason I'm in here is to fix a fuel leak. So if you have a fuel leak on a V10, it's probably these O-rings. The reason this is leaking, the guy that owned it before me changed the alternator and clearly did a terrible job putting the O-rings and everything back in. And he probably did what I did, lined it up incorrectly. And the whole time I've owned this car, it has just been pouring fuel out down here in the valley, literally the whole time. So I had to do something. But now you know the correct order to put these in, because if you mess it up, you're going to have a very hard time finding these tubes. You're going to want to just wish you were a machinist and could make them yourself, because believe me, I scoured the internet for days. And the 2.5 5-cylinder TDI uses the same tubes, actually, I think. Can't confirm. Although, instead of this rail being straight, this piece is turned at a 90 degree. So, if you might be able to find tubes by searching 2.5 TDI fuel pipes. Fuel pipes seem to be what brought up the most results. But anyway, good luck. If you're looking up this video, it's because you're where I was a few days ago. And it is scary, for sure.